Hello viewers, this is Dr. S.O.Kumar, Assistant Professor of English, SRR Government Arts and Science College, Karimnagar, Telangana. I am happy to share another video lesson with you on the topic the TOUCH, third semester, Unit 1. The TOUCH is written by Abburi Chaya Devi, who is a Telugu writer. Abburi Chaya Devi was born in Rajamundry, present Andhra Pradesh, in the year 1933. She wrote this short story in Telugu, which was later translated into English. Short story is one of the forms in literature, like poem, novel, drama. It is one of the popular forms. In the modern times, short story has attracted many writers and many readers. Short story form is very popular in the modern times. It suits the modern times, the modern reader and the mindset, and it has caught upon the imagination of the both the writer and the reader. Abburi Chaya Devi won Sahitya Akademi Award also in the year 2005 for her collection of short stories Thanamargam. Thanamargam, that means her own way. Thanamargam in English, Telugu. Translated into English, it states as my own way, my own path. She worked as librarian at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi for some time. She is one of the leading writers in Telugu literature. Her short stories have awakened the readers and Telugu speaking society to some extent. In all of her writings, she focuses on the problems of girls and women. In a way, her writings can be termed as feminist writings. That means she focuses on the issues, challenges being faced by girls and women in our society. She is one of the leading writers. The present essay, The Touch, was written in Telugu, but later it was translated to English. We have this English version now for our study. The short story Touch is about a family of two daughters and a son. The father is very much proud of his son, but whereas he puts a lot of restrictions on the girls, that is the two daughters in the family, the mother has no say about anything in the family. The father controls everything. He is the main breadwinner. As such, his words rule the roost. He gives utmost priority to the son. Whenever he steps out on certain occasions, he takes his son along with him, whereas he puts a lot of restrictions to the girls. He says girls should not step out. He says girls should be homebound. Girls are meant for staying at home. And after some time, the son unexpectedly dies in an accident, probably at an age of 18 or 20. It was a big shock for the father and of course the entire family. The family was putting a lot of hopes on the future of the son, his well-being and his services back to the family. Particularly the father had great hopes on the son and his contribution for the perpetuation of the name of the family. So, with the unexpected and sudden death of the son, the family slips into a great distress. It was a great tragedy. It was a great shock to the entire family. The father is unable to come to terms with the incident. So he goes into distress. After some time, he is bedridden. The neighbors, the relatives, and all try to console the father, but he is unable to come to terms with the unexpected shock that came in the form of the death of his son. As time passes, the father goes bedridden. The loss of perpetrator of the family name is a big shock to the father. He has an unbound grief and sorrow. The father's grief cannot be mitigated. Psychologically, he is terribly upset. So much so, the other members of the family. So, one day, the narrator visits the old father to console him because she knows that her father has been in a state of great distress and bedridden. She wants to console her father to some extent by visiting. She feels that her visit may go to some extent in providing some relief to the father, the grief-stricken father. So in the old age, while the father was bedridden, the narrator one day came to console the father. She finds the father in a great sense of desolation, sorrow, unfathomable sorrow. As the father sees her daughter, that is the narrator, come into the house, he blinks his eyes at her and tries to get up from the bed. But the narrator goes to the bed and sits in the bed. Then the father touches her back with great affection, with great love. The father's touch on the narrator is heavenly, gives a kind of heavenly feeling to her. In that moment, the narrator forgets everything and she feels she was greatly touched by her father, because she had been craving for this kind of touch all these years since her childhood, but she never got such a touch. Why? Because all these years the father had given priority, had shown love and affection only towards her brother, who unfortunately died in an accident recently. So, as the narrator had craved for this kind of touch from her father, she felt heavenly for the moment, sitting beside her father in the bed. She knows that her father was in great sorrow, great desolation. Then tears well up from her eyes. The narrator weeps. Suddenly, tears come out of her eyes because it was unexpected from her father, because she never thought that her father would show that much of affection, that much of love, that much of affection towards her. In that moment, everything else, the job, her position, wealth, money, etc., in vain. A single touch from her father made her think that entire heaven had come to her. The material pleasure, the material world just seemed vain for her in that moment. So, in brief, this is the short story. This is the essence of the short story. Well, what does the short story say? What is the message of the short story? As I said at the beginning of this lecture, short story is one of the forms in literature. In English literature also, short story has attracted many writers and readers, particularly during the last 100 years or so. The form of short story has penetrated into all the cultures and communities across the globe, and many writers have produced wonderful short stories on the basis of their cultural conflicts and aspects of life. As such, the present short story, The Touch, written by woman writer Chaya Devi, captures, presents the issues and challenges being faced by girls and women in our culture. Well, particularly the short story brings out the patriarchal structure of the society. That means the father gives high priority to the boy in the family, whereas he puts a lot of restrictions to the girls, including the narrator. The narrator has been at receiving end from her father. She never received as much love as her brother from her father. So, patriarchy means father as the head of the family, controlling everybody or doing everything for the family, or imposing restrictions on the other members of the family as per his taste or as per his likes and dislikes. That is patriarchy. The short story also brings out the domestic and social restrictions on girls. Yeah. The father never allowed the narrator and her sister to go out freely as their brother was. Even at the school also, the girls had so many restrictions. It was not much freedom as the boys enjoyed. So all these get reflected in the short story. Patriarchal problems of the society, the patriarchal pressures, patriarchal impressions, which lead to domestic as well as social restrictions and conflicts and challenges. And also the short story brings out parenting. That means how children are shaped by parental love and care. The father, of course, the mother also show great love, care, affection towards the son. It is the same case in most of the families across our society, because they think that boys only perpetuate the names of the family, name of the family. In our culture, we have the tradition at the death of father or mother, only a boy is supposed to complete the funeral rites, whereas the girls are not even allowed to come near at the time. So, these kind of beliefs and practices exist in our society. That means a kind of orthodoxy. These are age-old practices and beliefs, strict orthodoxic practices existing for the last 2000 or 3000 years in our culture. So the short story also aims at portraying these beliefs and orthodoxic practices. And also many of us have a belief that the old age, only the boys, that means the male child, would look after the helpless or old age parents. So with that hope, parents give utmost priority to the boys, male child, rather than the female child. All these beliefs, practices, ideas, cultural practices get portrayed, get described in this short story, The Touch by Aburi Chaya Devi. So, Chaya Devi's this short story is not only about the love between father and girl child, but also about our society, particularly the patriarchal society, how patriarchy is still prevailing in our society in spite of so many modern changes. So, these are some of the salient points of the short story, The Touch, written by Abbur Chaya Devi. Thank you.